Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT14, and BT14 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to be able to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be something a little less conventional and something we haven't really seen a whole lot of in the game, and that's going to be the Ukkomon Rookie Rush deck. So if you're unfamiliar with what Rookie Rush is, well, it's pretty simple and straightforward because the title is in how you play it. You're just going to be playing a whole bunch of rookies and, well, rushing and aggressing with them. Ukkomon helps this type of strategy out just because it allows us to gain memory for utilizing our raising area and wants us to try to turbo a raising area so that way we could try to get as many bodies on the field and be as aggressive as we possibly can. There's a ton of different floodgate rookies in the game to try to slow down the opponent's overall game plan, and if they don't have the ability to actually deal with our cards, then we could start capitalizing on their inefficiencies. So while we're going to be aggressing with our floodgates, and we're playing a whole bunch of different floodgates that they necessarily won't be able to play around, we're going to be aggressing with them, and if they end up dying due to attacking, then we're just going to hard play some more. The biggest weakness of the deck is the fact that it just has some natural built-in inconsistencies whenever you're playing with more than two colors, just because your evolutions in your raising area could be off. If you need to try to tech in or utilize a specific option, then that might be turned off just because of what you have on the field, so there is just that native problem. Then the deck also can just be walled out once the opponent is set up, so you're trying to aggress and rush them before they set up, so once they are, they also could potentially have the ability to recursively kill your rookies, so your deck kind of doesn't do anything once you're in that type of a position. You're just going to have to try and pray that you could aggress harder than they can set up. Then card draw also is going to be a bit of an issue just because you're not evolving as much as, say, your opponent could be, so you're slowing yourself down and not cycling through your deck as quickly to make sure that you could see the cards that you need to see, so we do have to have other ways and other forms to have card draw. But once you get past all of the deck's flaws, it is still kind of a fun and different type of a deck to play, just because it's not only just playing the game a little bit differently, it also is forcing the opponent to play the game a little bit differently, just because of all of the different floodgates that they're going to be under, potentially slowing them down, making for a really fun and unique experience. Even though it's not going to be anything top tier hyper meta competitive, it's still just a fun casual deck to mess around with. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile. Starting off with the Digi-Eggs, I am going to be running a red base for this deck, just because we do have some pretty decent card draw engines with our Digitamers. So I'm going to be running 4 copies of the new BT14 Ukkomon, just because this allows us to draw a card when a card is removed from the opponent's security stack, so it doesn't matter if the Digimon actually lives or dies, as long as it's not dying from an option, we're always going to be getting that card draw, which is super valuable. Then I'm also going to be running 1 copy of the BT11 Ukkomon that's doing something similar to Ukkomon, except it's an on-delete ability, where if we have a Red Tamer set up, then we get to draw a card, which we're going to be running a Red Tamer in the deck to help us along. Next, when it comes to the level 3s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Ukkomon. So Ukkomon is the main Digimon of the deck, and partially why the deck works to begin with. So it has this nice powerful ability where during your turn once per turn, when one of your Digimon moves from the breeding area to the battle area, we get to hatch a Digi-Egg in that breeding area and then be able to gain a memory. So this works with itself, so we ideally want to start our game off with Digivolving into Ukkomon, then the next turn we get to move it out, and then Ukkomon's ability will trigger, allowing us to hatch another Digi-Egg, refreshing ourselves, and gain that extra memory, so that way we have more memory to play around with to make our rookies as efficient as we possibly can. And the cool thing about this card is the fact that it does have a Rainbow Digivolution, so it could go on top of any egg in any color, in case you want to swap the base with something different to try to change it up a little bit. But I'm going to be going with the red base just because of the card draw engine engine, on top of the fact that we do have a card like 4 copies of Promo Guilmon that I'm playing, where it also is helping with our draw engine just because he has a good when attacking ability to be able to allow us to just draw a card. So we can use this in combination with the egg to potentially draw 2 cards, which is really good for a deck that's not digivolving or drawing a whole lot. Then I'm also going to be running 2 copies of Ukkomon. So this is the BT4 Ukkomon, and we're never going to want to digivolve into this card. This card is always just going to want us to hard play it just because it has a low play cost of 2 and 5,000 DP to make it as aggressive as we possibly can. And this card doesn't exactly have to be specifically Ukkomon. It could be anything else that's fitting that same role. So I would label the rookies that you just saw the core rookies of the deck, and then the rest of the deck is mostly just going to be filled with floodgate rookies for us to try to slow down the opponent based on the different types of floodgates we're going to be playing. So some of them just so happen to be in our color, some of them are not going to be in our color, but when we do see a floodgate in our color, that's going to be one we're going to be running at 4 of, so it just makes sense for us to have cleaner evolutions. And then I'm going to be running 6 of any given floodgate, so that way I can try to see the ability as much as I possibly can. So as a result, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gatsumon and 2 copies of Pillowmon, just because they both have that same ability to turn off the fact that players can't play Digimon by card effects. We're not going to be playing any Digimon by card effects, so it doesn't hurt us, but it could potentially hurt the opponent based on the type of deck that they're going to be playing. Then I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gaussmon and 2 copies of Cutemon to be able to stop the opponent from reducing their Digivolution cost, so that way it forces them to pay the normal amount, and it's really good, especially in this meta, just because training cards are going to be super powerful, and those reduce Digivolutions, on top of some Tamers also potentially reducing Digivolutions, and other Digimon's card effects could do this too, so it's going to definitely slow the opponent down if they're going to not be able to get rid of this type of a card. Gaussmon just has the advantage where it also has an extra ability to make our Gaussmon even stronger, where all of our other Gaussmons get plus 3,000, so if we have multiple Gaussmons on the field, it's going to make our Gaussmons a lot stronger. Then when it comes to some of the other floodgates we're going to be running, I'm going to play 4 copies of Solarmon and 2 copies of Psychmon. So both of these have the ability to stop players from reducing play costs. So in case they're trying to hard play cards for cheaper, this is a good way to try to make them pay full price, which again is slowing their deck down, depending on the type of deck that they're playing, like stopping or slowing down cards like Death Exo or even cross-based decks. And then the last pair of floodgates is going to be 2 copies of Gazimon and 4 copies of Terriermon to be able to stop the opponent from gaining memory except by their Tamers. This is just going to be a good way at slowing them down, making it so that they can't gain that memory to make their deck as efficient as it normally would be. And then when it comes to the options, I'm just going to be running red options to complement the fact that we're running red eggs, and red actually has some pretty solid options for us to use. So I'm going to be using 3 copies of Crimson Blaze, just because this basically is a floodgate in option form to be able to stop the opponent from being able to play Digimon by card effects until the end of their turn, while also having some decent removal attached to it by allowing us to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less, and it even can help itself reduce its cost to make this card even more efficient to use by costing 1 less for each Digimon the opponent has. So the wider the field they have, the cheaper this card is going to be, and usually if they're going to be playing a wide field, those bodies aren't going to be super strong, so this is a good way at cleaning all of that up while potentially slowing down the opponent even out of security. And then I'm also going to be running 2 copies of Magma Bomb. So Magma Bomb is a way for us to try to deal with one large target as efficiently as we possibly can, because it allows us to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. So we do have to make sure that if we're trying to delete their big Digimon, it's going to have to be the only Digimon on the field in order for Magma Bomb to be as effective as it possibly can. So if you want to tech this out for some other large body removal, then by all means do so. This has an extra upside to try to make itself a little bit cheaper, where if we have a red tamer in play, then we get to reduce the cost by 1, and then the last option of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Fireball. So Fireball allows us to try to deal with some of the lower level Digimon by deleting Digimon with 3000 DP or less, but the ideal situation isn't necessarily to delete the opponent's Digimon with Fireball, it's to use its secondary ability where if nothing was deleted, then we get to draw 2 cards as another alternative way for the deck to try to draw cards. And then when it comes to the Tamers, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Louie. So Louie, like Ukkomon, is another promo card that's kind of helping facilitate how this deck even functions to begin with, and is one of the key integral parts. So Louie here has an ability where we get to move one of our level 3 or higher Digimon from our raising or breeding area onto the battlefield when we play this card, so that way we could try to turbo our raising area as best as we possibly can, having alternative ways to be able to spawn our bodies. And the cool thing is, because it can come out of the raising area, it doesn't have any, in quotation marks, summoning sickness, so it's able to aggress right away. So it pairs up very nicely with our Ukkomon, helping us hatch a new egg in our raising area. Then on top of that, he also has an ability, again similar to Ukkomon, that's rewarding us for when Digimon are moving out of the breeding or raising area onto the battle area. We get to suspend them to gain extra memory for even more tempo, so we could try to play more of our cards as efficiently as we possibly can. Then I'm also going to be running as the Red Tamer 2 copies of the BT14 Tai Kamiya. So this is another decent tamer to help us with our overall memory generation when we're going to be aggressing onto the opponent, because during your turn, when a card is removed from your opponent's security stack, then we get to suspend this tamer to be able to gain an extra memory, which we're going to be doing when we're going to be swinging into the opponent's security. This card also has an upside to at least try to help it DP boost some of our Digimon, so that way they could live through the security as best as they possibly can, where at the start of our main phase, one of our Digimon that is a vaccine traded Digimon gains plus 2000 DP for the turn, which a good amount of the Digimon in the deck are vaccine traded, and you could even try to tech the deck to better incorporate this ability. That's pretty much it for the deck. It is kind of an interesting deck on all of the things that you can do and how you could tech it to be able to handle various different metas and matchups based on your own personal preferences and playstyles. There's plenty of different floodgates in various other colors that we could think about incorporating based on whatever egg you're going to be using and what floodgates you want to try to prioritize. Then we also could think about swapping around the base for different abilities to try to help us draw cards. Blue and purple are going to be some of the better ones if you're going to want to try playing with a different base, just because they have some of the best card draw engines next to what red can provide for us, on top of various other tech and tools that we could even think about using and trying out to try to help boost our Digimon and make them as strong as they possibly can, again to try to make sure that they can live through those security checks with plenty of different removal options in any of the different colors that we're playing, as other things that we could use to try to make it as hard on the opponent as we possibly can and remove their potential threats. Then we also have plenty of other tamers that we could tech around, again, depending on what colors you're trying to incorporate and abilities you're going to want to play. Sometimes the tamers are going to be a little bit harder to play, just because most of them won't be able to help us right away, unlike some of the ones that we're going to be playing with. Then you also could think about teching in some high-level Digimon that could be cheaper, just because when our floodgates die, then we could use those high-level Digimon to help us push alternatively. And then as far as some future potential upgrades for the deck, it kind of doesn't necessarily have any dedicated upgrades. It's just as long as they make more cards to help support a low to the ground go wide aggro strategy, then it's always something to think about and look back at, especially if they're going to be printing any more floodgates that do various different abilities. So it's going to be a very interesting deck to see how it develops, but I think what we have right now is pretty decent, and it actually could be pretty fun and effective at times if the opponent isn't able to do anything about our floodgates. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.